we're going to talk a little bit of our domain-specific infrastructures with a special focus on data for right-wing extremism research and racism research. We will start with a short introduction about why domain-specific infrastructures, why not a general infrastructure for this kind of data. Pascal will go on to detail a little bit on the background and mission of the DPRX project, and Marlene will finally line out our office on future services. So, as I said, some general introductory words on domain-specific infrastructures. Researchers and also research data centers, or RDC, face a number of challenges in dealing with data from specific fields. In this case, data from right-wing extremism and racism research. First of all, from the perspective of researchers, access and reuse of data in this specific domain might be challenging or could be challenging, because most repositories and archives are quite generic. So general purpose archives with no special metadata or special expertise in specific domains, including GESIS. So it might be very hard to find data related to your research questions, especially because some generic terms which are ingrained in some specific domains are not part of the metadata, and not all search engines are smart enough to detect studies if their appropriate terms are not coded into the search index. So second, we have quite special requirements for domain-specific data management and data sharing. In this field, for example, we had a lot of sensitive data which needs special attention in preparation and sharing. We have special kinds of data, for example, data from social media accounts or data from qualitative interviews, which needs special attention and preparation for sharing. And finally, we have a lot of hidden studies, either because norms of data sharing are not well developed in a certain domain, or you don't have a specific point of contact where you can share your data with the necessary expertise. And also from the perspective of research data centers, this is a challenging endeavor because you often deal with a multidisciplinary project, and most archives are, as I said, generic, so they lack a kind of domain-specific expertise which are necessary to deal with the data. Especially in the field of racism and right-wing extremism research, we have a lot of methodological challenges because we have a lot of mixed method studies which combine quantitative and qualitative data and interviews. We have a lot of computational social science stuff, like data culled from social media accounts, pictures, and text data. And these are hard to handle, or there are specific challenges, not only in legal terms, but also in technical terms. And finally, not all research data centers or archives have the necessary resources and workflows to handle this kind of data. Getting back to the example of sensitive data, not all archives have facilities, especially for sensitive data, like a safe room or a secure data center. And of course, both have common challenges in terms of legal insecurities in this case. For example, research in this area often involves interviews or data from very special populations like prisoners or criminals. And these are special requirements which might not easily be handled. So what we have on solutions. So one solution to all these kind of challenges or problems are federated infrastructures, which combine the expertise and resources of different multi-purpose or also specialized repositories and infrastructures to, on the one hand, combine special expertise in a field. For example, special expertise on kinds of data like qualitative data, but also secure a more common standards for the data archived and shared in terms of technical standards like assigning DOIs or being in line with general documentation standards like DDI and things like that. And on the other hand, the federated infrastructures are a leverage for us to foster the idea of open science and foster a culture of data sharing, which might be not optimal in every kind of research, in every field of research. So Pascal, will you go on to detail a little bit more about what is special on the DPRX project and what are the backgrounds and missions of our project are?
Thank you, Alex, and hello, everyone. I would like to start with a short remark. Unfortunately, I have a cold, so please apologize in case I cough or need to mute myself for a short moment. Before we will have a closer look at the offers and services of DPRX, I'm going to shed some light on the project background or core mission, and also on the data that we will curate and make findable in the DPRX Data Explorer coming early next year. Compared to common third-party funded projects, DPRX has a rather unconventional structure, as the funding was already awarded in July 21, but with the requirement of an exploratory phase to specify the project scope more profoundly. However, this approach also had the advantage that we were able to engage with the research communities and to take a look at the research data landscape in order to derive the right conclusions. The focus was here on community workshops with researchers to identify needs and hurdles regarding data sharing issues, and analysis of research data beyond the GESIS stock with a particular focus on their degree of fairness, the recruitment of project and also network partners, and last but not least, the adjustment of the work program. Given these insights and the results, we updated the application, which was then positively evaluated in March 22. As a project partners, we were able to include quality service for archiving qualitative data, the DECIM FDZ for archiving quantitative data on racism and also discrimination, and the social media observatory at the Hans Bredow Institute for a work package that we call VRAN, but more on this later. First, we have prepared a figure to illustrate our data analysis that we have conducted during the first phase. We think that this underlines the scope of DPRX to some extent and also explains the background against which we have recruited our partners. Therefore, on the one hand, we found a strong interdisciplinarity and also methodological diversity in the research field, while quantitative data is comparatively good and qualitative or multi-method data more difficult to find and access. Those studies are often not documented beyond generic information, making search queries very difficult or even inconclusive. On the other hand, and this is quite in line with our expectations, the analysis has shown that only around about 10% of the data whose existence can be proven has been published for reuse. And in summarizing, we conclude that the degree of data fairness in the field is improvable, which is where DPRX comes into play. This figure gives an impression how DSDIs can be located in the broader German context of data infrastructures. We have also included the Verbund FDB here as another very successful project that has already been established in 2013 for educational research data. In the middle, we have the German National Research Data Infrastructure, NFDI, which promotes the goal, among others, that research data should be made available according to the FAIR principles. Then we have consortia. This means associations of various institutions within a research field, for example, like Consort SWD for the social, educational, behavioral, and economic sciences, who work together in an interdisciplinary manner to implement these goals. Accordingly, on the inner orbit, we have then the research data centers like GESIS or QualiService, organized and each with a specialized expertise and also domain knowledge. On the outer orbit, we have then the DSDIs with its dedicated services, and we see them as a powerful link into the research communities. They serve as a central point for research data access and also help researchers to find suitable repositories for their special needs. Now, to turn over what DPREX is about, we have assembled here our central efforts, as you can see on the slide. Maybe a short reminder, our guiding principle was not to set up a new repository, but to promote the networking of RDCs, to build on existing technical services and adapt these for our purposes, and also tailored for the needs of the research domain. The main goal is to make relevant research data and their analysis potential visible to researchers, to strengthen their reuse and make research more efficient and better. At the same time, we support and organize the publication of research data from the current BMBF funding on racism and right-wing extremism research. And as Alex already said, we want to improve the culture of data sharing in the research domain. Furthermore, we want to support research data management, as we have seen that there are increasing needs regarding the often quite sensitive data in the field. And this leads also over to another important topic, as well as challenge for research, which was frequently addressed in the dialogue with the communities, namely the analysis and general use of so-called digital behavioral data, including data handling and publication. Therefore, considering an existing research gap, we are conducting a reference data set on hate speech and hate crime on the internet. We believe that this is of crucial importance, especially to improve our understanding of this phenomena and its consequences. Not only the annotated data set itself will be made available for reuse in the future, but also the methods of data collection and information extraction will be documented and made accessible. When we think of online communication today, we know that powerful right-wing actors or even conspiracists are connected by an online ecosystem encompassing multiple web platforms like YouTube, Telegram, Instagram, TikTok, and so on. But often it's not clear which actors are behind these accounts that post hateful or harmful content, and it's difficult to compile cross-platform registers of those actors, for example, for web scraping or other methods of data extraction. And additionally, these lists are for several reasons not shared across the boundaries of research projects. Given these hurdles, I try to briefly describe. We started the project component VRAN, and in a nutshell, the aim is to legally exchange such directories between projects, also to prevent redundant work and speed up the research process. GESIS will serve as a trustee to ensure secure data exchange, while the conceptual and technical implementation of VRAN is headed by the Social Media Observatory. The DPREX data search, from our point of view, is likely to be the most interesting for several users, which is why I would like to briefly outline the data that will be soon explorable in this tool. On the one hand, this is, of course, the topical or topic-related stock data from the federated RDCs. For example, also the National Monitoring of Discrimination and Racism from the DECIM. However, data search is only useful if a high coverage of data can be realized. For this reason, We are also expanding our cooperations with further RDCs to reference the archived data stored there. For example, with the RDC of the Research Institute Social Cohesion in Bremen. And finally, we will archive and publish data which is collected over the next years as a part of the BMBF's framework program, Humanities and Social Sciences. As you might already know, many projects are currently or soon in the field, and we want to support and enable the resulting research data to be made fair for reuse. And the following, Marlene will zoom in more detailed how we are shaping our tailored services for the communities.
Yes, thank you, Pascal. As Pascal has already mentioned, the three main offers and services of our project are the data sharing, the data management, and data search, which I would like to explain in more detail now. Next slide, please. Data sharing, which involves archiving and publishing data through the DPREX portal, is free of charge for the data holders. The only condition that is that the data must align with the collection guidelines and meet the necessary requirements for data protection and research ethics. So especially the processes on data preparation, curation, and documentation are crucial, because the data is intended to be made available for long-term secondary use. So researchers that already hold data can go get in touch through our website and a registration form. And this registration form collects, for example, information about the type and condition of the data. And in case of questions or issues during this process, we also offer support in research data management, short RDM. And next slide, please, Pascal. This research data management can be very important, especially in this field of research, because researching racism and extremism involves sensitive topics and content. And the data may also cover vulnerable groups that deserve special protection. And therefore, it is also advisable to get in contact for support early in the research process, also to prevent limitations in secondary data use in the end. For this, the respective research institutes are available to answer questions, and they also supply information material that might be needed. So we have Quali Service, who provides advice for qualitative studies. The DSM offers guidance for studies on racism and discrimination research, and GESIS handles quantitative data, also on right-wing extremism and migration research. And for general questions about the data publication and requirements, I would also like to refer back to my colleagues from previous talks. You can find the links to these talks in the slides, which will be made available after this presentation. One of the significant advantages of our data portal lies in the development of topic-specific metadata, and these are intended to make the data search easier and as efficient as possible. So the following illustration provides an overview of the development of our metadata and the previous phases that were involved, from reviewing the field to metadata enrichment and ultimately metadata publication. The initial phase was and still is one of the most important stages of development, as it involves both the deep dive into research fields content as well as the methodology. So first, for reviewing the research field, we conducted an extensive and interdisciplinary literature review to develop our topic-specific describing standards. And here, of course, we wanted to provide a good coverage of the field as well. And therefore, the review included national and international literature from the fields of prejudice and racism research, as well as migration and integration research. And we also took the opinions of our research communities into account and were in close contact and communication with our project partners. However, we didn't take this process lightly, as it requires a sensitive and responsible approach to categorization always, but especially given the frequently involved vulnerable groups and sensible topics of this field. And so one of the guidelines in this process was to critically examine the existing concepts and modes of data collection in the field. And this was also in order to avoid reproducing discriminative structures through the field. So one of the most important key values of the portal is a critical documentation practice that considers various social contexts and perspectives. And from a methodological perspective, reviewing the field involved looking at the data that was already there, especially metadata from the data holders. And here we aimed at being compatible with existing metadata standards to facilitate the data transfer in the end. This means that to achieve this data transfer, we assess the metadata that data holders possessed to initiate the harvesting process, but also conversely, we made our metadata collection compatible to existing metadata standards to ensure that it could be used by other metadata catalogs without major effort. And this also brings us to the second phase, where we structured our data collection, because in addition to data coverage and cultural critical documentation, two other goals were the accessibility and transparency. And to achieve these goals, we established our metadata categories in form of a controlled vocabulary in CESTA, which is a data service platform where you can where you have free access to our categories. And here it's important to note as well that categories remain expandable and will continue to evolve, which also means that they remain open to and adaptable to change in the research field. And similarly, the publication of new data will continue until the project's end in 2026, and the portal remains open for registration and new data and their publication through our search portal. And this is also the outcome of our development process, our search tool, which will provide the relevant data in this field. And for this reason, I want to conclude by highlighting our functionality, the functionality of this search tool with a use case. So on this slide, you can see a prototype of the data search, and we prepared some examples to highlight the different search options. Next slide, please. So first, we can see the thematic metadata which appear on the left side of the search bar as filter options. For instance, if I select anti-Semitism as a concept, the search results will display studies that include this concept, and these concepts will then appear as tags in the respective study entries in the right. And the same principle also applies to our group categories called differentiation factors. And this category covers groups that are affected by racism and right-wing extremism, as well as right-wing extremists and racist groups and actors that have been understudied. And additionally, we offer an individual search function, which allows to search for specific terms from the research field, and these search terms then appear as selections in the upper left corner of the search, and they can easily be removed from there. And these search terms will then also appear as tags in the search results. Other functions include the detailed display of the methodology that provides standard information on the mode of selection, sampling procedure, and so on. And finally, the portal includes some general filters for geographic coverage, dates of data collection, contributors, and the respective research data centers that archive the data. Yes, so much on our data search tools so far, and now I want to thank you for your participation, and we look forward to your questions.